Alright guys, we're back out here in the garage with the 750iL. As you may recall from the last video, we broke the power steering pump, which we still put it back on. We have new belts for it, but last time I worked on it, I didn't have any belts. I have the new ones now, so I need to replace them. Off camera, we replaced the transmission fluid, but we made a small mistake, which I'll show you here soon. We still cannot get this thing to run right. Ever since we broke it trying to hit it on the highway, we still have yet to fix it. We don't know what's wrong with it, but let me show you what we've got into. So back in the engine bay, trying to figure out if these MAF sensors are the reason that it's causing so many issues, because a lot of the stuff that I researched was saying that the MAF sensors are directly related to the transmission shifting. Well, right now the transmission shifts fine, unlike the first time whenever we took it for a drive, the transmission didn't want to shift. The transmission shifts now, it's just really late, and I have no engine power. So the first thing we looked into was trying to see if these MAF sensors were causing the issue. Well, I unplugged them, or at least one of them at a time while the engine was running, just to see if they would sputter and die. Well, if I do the left-hand side, regardless of the MAF sensor, because we swapped them, it dies. If I do it on the right-hand side of the car, if I unplug it over there, it literally does no change whatsoever. Nothing. No change whatsoever. I feel like that should die, but it doesn't. You unplug the other one, it dies. Did it do a check engine light when I unplugged the right-hand side?
The check engine light did come on, but it still ran the same.
Okay, so I don't understand why, but, you know, as he just said, check engine light comes on, but the engine still runs. If I unplug this one, it dies. So Levi was maybe wondering if it might be a primary system on the driver's side. I don't know. I feel like if you unplug either of them, they should die, but I don't know for sure. So according to the Bentley service manual here, it has a couple of troubleshooting steps that you can do here. It tells you to check the terminals with the ignition on and the connector disconnected from the MAF sensor. And whenever we tried this, every single one of these passed, so I'm not too worried about that. The next step that I'm getting ready to do is, after I run the engine, I'm going to check and see if the MAF sensors glow after running it, which is what it says they should do, so that's what I'm going to check next. As of right now, I have the car lifted up so I can change the transmission fluid again because of the mistake that I made. And I think Levi's going to go ahead and try to take off the throttle bodies, which sadly enough, as you may see right there, I have one of those little anti-tamper screws that are sitting on the throttle body. So I don't know how we're going to get that off of there, but I guess we're going to have to try. I want to try to clean these throttle bodies up. I have new gaskets for those. I also have a new boot for this. As you can see, that one's pretty ripped. So we're going to get to it. So now I'm on the bottom side of the car here with the transmission. As you can see, I've got the drain plug here that just takes a 5mm Allen. We're going to drain this out again. I wish I had it on video last time I did this because the stuff that came out was damn near dark brown. So this time it shouldn't be too dirty. But then again, whenever you drain your transmission like this, you don't really get all the fluid out of it. It's a little better looking than last time. The other thing that we also missed was Levi dumping the fluid that was in this pan all over him. I wish I had that on video.
It is still 9:57.
Now for the filter, we got 3 bolts here. They all take a T27 Torx. Come down there now. I know it's, oh, there it goes. As soon as you start loosening it, leave some pressure or something, all that fluid starts coming out. And there's the last one. Yeah, well, it's still on there. Okay, so the reason that I needed to change this transmission fluid again, as you see, there's this like little plastic donut that's sitting on here. Don't forget to remove that, because that is not supposed to be on there. I'm kind of surprised that that stayed on there. But after watching some videos about it and such, I was thinking that this was a feature for this filter because it's not an OEM one. Whenever we looked at it, whenever we pulled it out of the box, we didn't play with it, so we didn't realize that that was not supposed to be there. There's an O-ring in the kit, and we didn't see an O-ring anywhere in here, and we're like, oh, okay, must be for a different transmission. Nope, it's supposed to go on this. So now I'm going to get this filter a little bit cleaned up, get rid of this plastic piece, put the O-ring on it because I still have it, clean up this, and get this pan back on. Surprisingly enough, even with that piece on there, the transmission did work. I don't know if that plastic piece just somehow made enough of a seal for this or what,
Well,
but
I mean,
it
if you
still
look
worked.
at it, it looks like it's a seal. Almost.
I mean, it kind of does. I mean, from what
a little bit soft.
If we put that O-ring in there, the surface is already cleaned up because I cleaned it up when I took out the filter the first time. Now we have the same filter here without that donut piece, and we also have the O-ring on there. Put a little bit of a transmission fluid on it. Stick it back up in here. I need a magnet. There you are. Well, at least my tools ain't gonna rust. Click, click. All torqued. Wipe off the gasket surface a little bit. Again, I already cleaned this off the first time that I took the filter off of here. Got the transmission pan up here on the table. Got it all cleaned up. Really wasn't too bad because it was already cleaned once before. The magnets are still pretty clean after that, small session I had of driving it. Got the new gasket on here, which, good enough. The company, whenever they send these out, they just cram it into a box, so it makes it difficult to put this on. So now that this is on, I've got most of the pieces that are holding the gasket and the bolts in still on here. A couple of the bolts fell out, as you can see here, so I'm just going to put that on whenever I put the pan back on the transmission. So let's try to get it back on. Alrighty. Alright, after fighting with that oil pan for quite a while now, I realized that if your pieces fall out, make sure that you have the corner pieces back where they need to go, along with the side pieces where they need to go as well. And also don't forget your dipstick tube, which is what I'm putting on right now, and to tighten it to hell so it doesn't leak.
Just turned it back on.
Hacking into the mainframe.
This is Caleb, a platform for freelance services. Caleb will make an attention-grabbing.
So back over here on the bench, Levi's got the throttle bodies prepped to tear apart. There's that safety screw that you pretty much can't get to, I guess, without a tool. He slotted it for a flathead screwdriver, and we're going to hope that we can take this out.
Well, so much for that screwdriver.
I don't know, I seem to have a common habit of breaking screwdrivers now. I've already broke 2 of them at the apartment for the Honda. Now I've broken 1 of them for the BMW. Does the hole look good?
Yeah. Just snap the tip off the screwdriver. That's gonna be.
It's a bit in a socket.
I figured it was magnetic.
No. Oh, jeez. Burgos. That worked. I want to take off just a bit. So after fighting with this throttle body for a good bit, the tamper screw is finally just broke off of here. We tried to drill this one, the same that we did as the other one. I was putting a slot in it. That didn't work, so we went ahead and just cut the head off so we can go ahead and remove this. So I've got all the bolts broke loose, so I'm going to try to go ahead and remove this cover. Then you got this little plate here, sits around the connector, and the O-ring that sits around the connector. And you can see how rusty this thing is, so I'm definitely going to have to use a little bit of prying force on it very gently, just so I can actually break the surface open and get this cover off. There's a dowel pin that sits right up in there. It's probably going to pull the rotor out with it, get this magnetized. Yep, just pull the rotor out with it. Try to grab it here. Ooh, that one's pretty dirty. Look at that. I don't know if that was causing any issues, but it definitely would be improved after I put this back together. But man, that is quite rusted. The magnets themselves look pretty clean on the inside, but this cover definitely needs a little bit of cleaning up, as you can see there. So on the other side of that cover, you also have an O-ring that sits on that connector. Overall, the inside of the case looks pretty good. The brushes move, at least that one moves pretty freely. That one also moves pretty freely, so that one's not an issue there. That's pretty good. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove this brown plastic as well, just so I can clean underneath it, and also check that connector that's underneath it. Very gently try to pull up on this, get this to come out. This sits on like a little dowel as well, so it's probably going to be a little difficult. There we go. Looks pretty clean on that little plastic piece, along with this little like bus bar that they have. Looks pretty clean on that. Kind of hard to see from the camera, but there's little fins that sit right there. Those are also in pretty perfect condition as well, which is pretty good. And now, just so I can avoid touching that connector and those little tiny fins, I'm going to take off these two Torx, which takes off this block. There we go. So this surface is actually pretty clean. This one I'm going to take a little bit of time to clean. For most of this stuff that I'm cleaning, I'm just using the CRC QD electronics cleaner. It seems to dry up pretty quick and doesn't leave much of a residue, which is pretty nice. It's also, with most of these electronic parts here, I've never had an issue using it. So that's what I'm going to use to clean most of this. I'm going to go ahead and clean up the gasket surface as well. Now it looks much better now, doesn't it? So now I can go ahead and clean off the other surface as well. Again, I need to be insanely careful not to bend these tabs while cleaning it. Block off this drive to the gears here. Alright, with that all cleaned up, I'm ready to go ahead and start assembling the throttle body and cleaning the other parts. As you may have noticed, I went ahead and took out the stud as well, which is for that anti-tamper screw, so I need to find a replacement for that. First thing I'm going to do is just double check. I've got this little like plunger sitting in there, and this O-ring as well. As you can tell, it's in pretty bad condition, but you can't buy it. I'm going to lube it up a little bit before I stick it on. Now I can very carefully install this, making sure I don't touch the little contact points. That's what I'm going to call them now, contact points. And fully seat that down in there. And I got the two Torx bolts. Now the brown connector piece. I slowly put this in here. There is a little dowel that this thing will sit on. There we go, fully seated at the 3 Phillips screws. I'll set that off to the side for now and clean up this rotor. The brushed surface area doesn't look too bad, but man, it's rough. So I'm going to use a little bit of sandpaper on that and try to clean that up a little bit and see how it'll look afterwards. It's like stamping it into the paper towel as I roll it. Now that part looks much better. It probably could be a little bit cleaner, but from the feel of it and what I can see with my eyes instead of the camera, it looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to take a little bit of a finer grit sandpaper than what I used on this for this surface to polish it up a little bit. Now that's all cleaned up, so this is ready to go. As for the motor shell, I'm going to clean this up too, because as you can tell, it's pretty rusted. I would like to go ahead and paint this while this piece is off. So I'm going to scruff it up with sandpaper and go ahead and paint it real quick. Well, it's not perfect, but it looks a lot better than what it was. So now I'm ready to go ahead and finish off the throttle bottle assembly. First up is this little O-ring. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of lubrication on it. It sits right here around this connector. Go ahead and lube up that O-ring as well. Before we stick the rotor in there, we need to set the brushes back. So I'm just going to take a little flathead screwdriver, set that one up in there. There we go. Now they're both set. A bit of lubrication at the top of the rotor here from where it spins on it. I can set the rotor down with the splines. There we go. It's fully seated in there. Now we can deset the brushes in there, barely touching them, they click into place. This one's a little harder to get to. Here we go. Clicked in place. Then for the motor cover, also it has a molded gasket to it. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of lubrication on it as well. Now I'm ready to go ahead and put the cover back on the rotor. And in order to do this, you have to be pretty fast with it because this magnet on the inside of the cover is going to be pulling this upwards. So you got to kind of hold it a little bit, and then you got to be fast with it so it doesn't pull that rotor out from the brushes. There we go. Give it a light few taps just to help seat it around the perimeter. Now we have the connector O-ring. Sits right there. Lubed up, of course. Now we have this hold down plate, which only goes on one way. Got these 5 screws to go ahead and put in. Then we have one Torx here, as the other one was the anti-tamper screw. Now it's time to go ahead and put the throttle bodies back in. I've got a new, I believe, OEM gasket here. I also went ahead and bought a brand new intake boot since the last one that I had a pretty big tear where this spout is on this side. So I was actually able to get a brand new one off of FCP. Alrighty. A little bit of Vaseline actually helped quite a lot when putting that barb fitting on. I can put the hose clamps back on. I can go ahead and plug the MAF sensor back in. And snapped in, fully secure. Now to do the same with the other side. Just like that, the other side is done. So what I'm going to do now is to turn the key on and make sure that the throttle bodies actually still work. So as you saw, both throttle bodies seem to be working now, so hopefully that fixes some of the issues I've been having. Last thing I'm going to do before I actually run this thing and test drive it again, which I'll probably be disappointed, but still, I need to go ahead and fill up the transmission because I still haven't done it yet. Like I said, whenever I drained it out, it drains out about 3 liters worth, so that's what I'm going to be putting back in. Also, that dipstick sits right underneath that little siren that you see right there. In order for me to get to it, I practically have to use 2 funnels. So I've got a short one, I've got this real long one. I wish the long one just fit in there because it would work perfect, but of course, it's too big. Well, let's hope I didn't forget something on the bottom. Now I know that the level is not going to be correct on this dipstick, but at least will give me a baseline that it actually is close to where it should be. I'll put this dipstick down in here and I'm probably not going to be able to easily get it back out. This really puts the work out on your fingers when this thing does not want to come out. Good Lord. Alright, so I'm test running the car right now while it's in the garage. Something to note is that I keep having an intermittent check engine light. As you see right there, the car is running, I'm not touching anything. It's on right now, and if I give it a couple revs, it goes out. I have no clue what it's reading because it's not bringing up any of the codes for the the accelerator pedal depress codes. Nothing pops up with that, and nothing pops up with the code reader because it's not storing a code. Yet it's still running in some like limp mode because the engine has no power. See, there it is again. Check engine light's on. Goes out. I have no clue why it's doing this. Alright, time to go for a little test drive. That noisy power steering pump. Car keeps wanting to die just by putting it in reverse and backing up. There it is, dying there. Son of its blood, holy crap. Well, it just died. Put it back in park here. Let's try that again. Alright, I'm giving her a bunch of gas and she's just struggling. I let off the gas and it finally shifts, but it's pretty rough. Put it in first and put it in manual. Put it in auto shift, trying to die again. I'm giving it all right now. So it'll shift on demand, which is good with the manual. It's to the floor right now. Will shift with the pedal down. We'll hit 65 there. I don't know how well the phone's picking that up, but I do got a little bit of steam coming down here somewhere. I don't know if it's burning stuff off the exhaust from where I spilled a lot of fluid or what's going on. Well guys, I still haven't figured it out yet. So let me stop myself right there and show you what I found out after I recorded this outro. Well, I just happened to check the fuses while I'm sitting here. I wanted just to make sure that all of them were good. And the only one that's not good is number 24 right there. So, looking at the little fuse box legend here, number 24 and 23, fuel pumps. I'm kind of wondering if one of the fuel pumps is not working, obviously because the fuse is blown. I wonder if that's what's causing my engine to run rough. Let's swap that fuse out and see if it blows again, see if it makes any difference. Alrighty, new fuse in number 24. Well, it blew another fuse, so that kind of points me in a direction of what could be wrong for the fact that one of the fuel pumps is not working and it's blowing fuses. So as you can see, it's kind of hard to see on that one, but yeah, that one's blown too. So that's two fuses that blew for the second fuel pump. So I need to look into that. I guess maybe need to open the tank access port and see if I can see anything wrong with that fuel pump. I've never changed them, but I think it might be time to if it just keeps blowing fuses like this. But until then, if you'd like more videos like this, please subscribe.